Welcome. The hour is 5:39 p.m. on Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. The Tooele City Council and the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City are meeting in a work meeting. This meeting is being held at Tooele City Hall in the council chambers located at 90 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. This is also being streamed electronically on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We will start with a roll call. Councilman McCall?
Present.
Councilman Hanson?
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm also present. Councilwoman Manzin will join us shortly, and then Councilwoman Gochis has asked to be excused tonight. We'll move on to item 3, which is the mayor's report.
Thank you, Chairman. We have finally put the traffic signal up at 100 East and 1000 North. So far, so good. Everything is working really well. I just wanted to make sure that everyone, at least you were aware, and we have received a couple of questions from the public of why there's an arrow pointed straight to go into a house. Well, there really are people that live there, and so they get to go straight so they can get to their homes. But also, there is a land use map adjustment that you're going to be looking at tonight. And to the west of the home that is really at the center of the intersection, they do own that property next to them, and they are planning on putting some commercial project there. And so you will go straight through that intersection to a, not really, I guess kind of we can call it a frontage road, what will be there, but there will be a driveway to get over to that other area. So that is why it's marked the way that it is. It is working very well, and we're appreciative of our streets crews and public works that made that all happen for us. So a lot safer intersection, and I have already heard many comments that people love that they can get out onto 1000 North. So that's really great. So that's all I have to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is the council members' report. We'll start with Councilman McCall.
I'll be attending the COG tomorrow, and I also attended, along with you, the firefighters' tribute to 9/11, and also attended the Arts Council meeting last week. I think that's it. I didn't write it all down, and I think that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson.
Got lucky enough to go to Planning Commission meeting last week. It was a good meeting and had some good training by Mr. Agard, and enjoyed that. And then went down, and on Saturday when I got back from work, I was able to go down to the Downtown Alliance Mexican Fiesta on Vine Street. There were a lot of people there, and it looked like well attended and good food and a lot of fun. So then I went over to the St. Marguerite's after that and got to check that out, to their event. So it was good. Good events in Tooele.
I did both of them too. I forgot.
There was a lot going on.
It was a lot going on Saturday.
I attended the 9/11 Memorial Walk. That was very well done, very moving. I hope every year that gets a little bit bigger and bigger. And they had a great turnout, but I'd love to see, I think it was 343 firefighters died on 9/11. So it'd be great to have at least 343 people walking next year. That concludes my report. We will move on to our discussion items. Our first discussion item is a discussion on stormwater and streetlight fees presented by Shannon Wimmer, the Finance Director.
Good evening, Council. Tonight we'll be bringing you the study that we have completed on stormwater and streetlight fees. As you guys are aware, we've been reviewing all of our utility fees. These last 2 fees will complete all of those. Neither the stormwater nor the streetlight fees have been adjusted since we implemented those, so they definitely needed this study to take place. And we do have Fred Philpott from LRB Public Finance. He'll be presenting that actual study to you, so I don't want to steal any of his presentation, but I'll just give you the brief rundown, and that is that currently our stormwater fee for a residential household is $3 a month. We will be proposing that this would increase to $3.84 per month. The streetlight fee is currently $2 for a residential household, and you'll see on this study, there's different fees depending on if you're multifamily, commercial. This would increase to $3.50. So on this one, the initial jump is higher. It's about 75% in this first year. The next year would be 28%, then it'll go down to 3%. But we did structure that. We recommended this one that way because in the end, by the time you get to fiscal year 2030, it actually kept the rate cheaper. So it will actually save in the long run to keep those fees down, even though there is about $1.50 jump here at the very beginning. So I will just turn the time over to Fred Philpott with LRB Public Finance, and he will go into the study, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Shannon. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes.
Great. I will share my screen. Alrighty, can you see this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as Shannon indicated, we were tasked with reviewing the storm and street lighting rates. And similar to the other rate discussions we've had in the past, our objective was to look at revenue sufficiency, evaluate cash reserves, ensure if there's any outstanding debt or future debt obligations that we are maintaining a debt coverage ratio. And then in addition, we're looking at trying to ensure that we can maintain the current rate structure where possible and evaluate rates for a 5-year period. Our model goes beyond that, and we're able to look at a longer projection. But for purposes of rate policy, we focus on the 1 to 5 year planning horizon so that we have a little bit more confidence in those assumptions that we're including in our evaluation. So with regards to our objectives, our revenue growth is based on historic information, budget data that was provided to us, and assumptions relative to new customers and changes in that base. Our cost of service analysis, again, is also based off the expense projections based on historic budget information, ensuring that we're maintaining an inflationary element in our operating expense growth. With regards to our rate design and scenario analysis, this is the final phase of our evaluation where we look at structuring rates to maintain the objectives that we've identified while trying to optimize those rates. So as Shannon indicated, often upfront increases can result in reduced rates in the long term when compared to more gradual increases, but there can be challenges associated with trying to adopt large increases up front. So it's a balancing act and a scenario analysis of looking at what those objectives are and how can we structure rates to achieve those objectives, and that's the purpose of that scenario analysis. One of the primary drivers in both of these funds is our needed capital improvements. As we discussed with other enterprise funds with water and sewer, capital cost, capital investment can be a huge impact, and with regards to storm and street lighting, we're layering in that component to ensure that we can fund the necessary capital improvements. I'll also point out that staff spent quite a bit of time reviewing the capital improvements to try to identify those that would be critical and necessary while trying to push some of the capital projects that could be pushed out, that we moved those out in the model. With regards to storm, we're looking at $4.6 million in capital needs within the 5-year planning horizon. With street lighting, we're looking at $1.1 million. Here we're starting off at about $100,000, and then that grows over time as we layer on some additional capital improvement needs in the street lighting element. So with regards to additional unfunded operational needs, we do not have any in the storm utility. So we're building our model based on existing expenditure categories and growing those based on inflationary pressure. In the street lighting, we do have increased operational costs with that Rocky Mountain Power bill that is coming to the city that you don't have to cover. So we are bringing that in starting in 2026, adding another $150,000 of cost, which then is inflated over time. With regards to our scenario analysis, so what we've looked at here is a baseline, which is do nothing, no rate change, and we look at what happens to our fund balance and our debt coverage. And scenario 2 is the increase needed to achieve our objectives. So we really focus on those two objectives for both storm and street lighting. When we look at the do-nothing approach for storm, the capital improvement needs erode any fund balance that we have now, and we're not able to maintain our fund balance into the future. So essentially, either revenues have to increase or your expense has to decrease, meaning we'd have to remove those capital costs, and that could create some challenges for the storm fund. Under scenario 2, as Shannon indicated, we're proposing a 28% increase. Our model actually shows that continuing. Now we recommend that you review that on an annual basis to determine how your fund performs, but it does appear that the storm utility is behind the 8 ball, so to speak, and that you're going to have to generate some additional revenue to fund that capital improvement plan and end with a fund balance above that 150-day target. As a reminder, what that fund balance target is, it's essentially saying that if you had no revenue, you could operate with your savings for approximately 150 days. So that's what we measure within these utilities. Some entities will try for a 365-day coverage. 150 days is typically viewed as a benchmark relative to kind of an average target there. So that's what we've set it at, is the 150 days fund balance target for the storm enterprise fund. The street lighting, the same approach here with a baseline do nothing. However, for street lighting, we did pull that increase to be more pronounced up front to help address the new O&M, that bill from Rocky Mountain Power, as well as the needed capital improvement program. So this is more front-loaded. Here you can see the do-nothing approach. We just don't have enough to make that work. And here's the proposed with a 75% increase followed by a 28%, and then it drops down to more of an inflationary increase thereafter. As Shannon indicated, usually front-loading your increases results in a reduced, not a reduced rate, but a lower rate than you would otherwise have to get to if you did a more gradual increase. So in this case, we did front-load it to meet that operational need and capital improvement need, and to get us on track. With regards to the dollar amounts, again, Shannon highlighted this for our storm rate, that residential R1 zone going from $3 to $3.84. If you implemented followed the plan through year 5, rates potentially get up to $10.31. Which is well above what you're at now to maintain that sustainability. On the street lighting, again, starting at that $2, bumping up $1.50 to $3.50, then you can see it reaches about $5 at the 5th year. So that is a summary of our findings relative to storm and street lighting. Where we go from here is, obviously this is draft, and we've presented some scenarios to you as a legislative body. We would need to finalize that based on any input you have. We can prepare alternative scenarios if desirable. Once we finalize that, we would prepare final recommendations, revise the model if needed, And then you, again, as a legislative body, would move towards that adoption phase if you chose to do that. Questions for me on our model, our process, methodology?
For the light fund, street light fees, is that primarily due to just the cost of energy is going up, or is it also to replace lights and maintenance, all of that?
Yes, yeah, so it's the cost, that operational expense, but we also have layered in that replacement cost. So we have built in, a replacement of certain clusters of lights within the city. We also have maintenance built into this budget, so a large expense is just street light repairs, fixing lights, but we've now layered in actual replacement of infrastructure.
And on the 150,000, just so you know, that is what it costs us just for the street lights, the energy to the street lights. It was always our plan to bring this in this fund, which is really where it should be funded, but because we had so many projects that we needed to get these new street lights out, that has been funded in the general fund. So this will move that expense from the general fund to the streetlight fund, which is why you see that 150,000 new O&M. It's not new, we're paying that, but we're moving it from the 10 fund to this fund.
Okay.
On the storm fund, we're gonna raise it 5 times what it is basically in 5 years. What we're gonna charge our consumers, is that what I'm reading?
From the $3 to the 1031, is that what you're talking
1031, well, so
about?
I guess it's 3 times what it is then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
close to 3 times.
yes, and that's to complete all of the capital improvement projects that Jamie has, which we'd be happy, of course, to give you a list. But if we're going to complete those, and assuming that the costs stay what they are and inflation stays what we've put in this model, that's what we would need in order to complete those. Which is my understanding. I'll let Fred answer that, Fred, but it's my understanding that's still very competitive with what other
Yes.
cities charge. We're
Yeah.
still quite low on stormwater rates than what most cities are. So it's not going to put us by any means out of whack. Right now, we're extremely low.
I would like to see what we're gonna do with it, just so that when I'm asked, I can say,
Absolutely. I'll send you that file.
Okay.
Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
So we would just ask if you're ready, would you like to see other scenarios? Are you okay with this scenario? Are these the rates you would like us to bring back? Once we would propose them to you, obviously by resolution, once we adopt them, then we're not required, but we would do the 90-day notification just like we have on all of the other fees. So we would just look for your recommendation on how you want us to move from this step. If you'd like to see some other scenarios, if you want to have some more discussions on it, or if you want these proposed rates to come back to a work meeting.
I'm okay if they come back to a work meeting with these proposed rates. Does anyone else want to see a different scenario, or? The streetlight fee, I'm fine with, I understand that, yeah. The storm rate, kind of like Ed said, I just have questions about what project specifically, but we know that if we don't do this, then we fall behind, and so that's why I support it. But go ahead.
I
Mayor.
just, if our citizens seen a 300% tax increase, they'd definitely be knocking down our door, so it's,
Yeah,
I just need to know what it is.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I'll send that. These are all projects that are taken off of the 5-year budget plan for that fund too, but absolutely, I'll send that to you guys tonight so that you can take a look at what projects were included in there for both of them. There really isn't any projects in the streetlight, but specific, but there are for the stormwater, so we'll get that over to you.
All right, great. And I'm really ultimately good for it if it's what we need.
Well, we've all seen, nobody wants to increase rates, but we've all seen everything go up. My personal power bill has gone up dramatically. So we aren't exempted from those increases by the power company and by, the construction companies, all the things that we see at home applied to the city too.
Absolutely, and the projects, the longer we wait, the more expensive they get, and that's part of this balancing act that Fred was instrumental in helping us determine which ones do we front load and which ones do we put across, because we do want to push out what's not needed. We don't want these ratepayers paying for projects that, aren't going to come in this time period, but at the same time, we have to weigh those critical ones that have to be done. They're just going to get more and more expensive. So what's the most cost-effective way for us and the rate users to get those done?
Is there potential as you add more commercial property or residential that this decreases over 5 years, or is this, I know this is calculating our growth a little bit, but if we had, let's say we had a big commercial property come that we didn't anticipate.
Well, I'm getting way out of my expertise here. This is more of a Jamie question, but it's my understanding that all of these projects are for the current Tooele City, like the current developed areas.
Okay.
So your new commercial and your new develops will bring in their own stormwater
Right.
detention for those areas. So I'm not aware that those would affect any of the projects that we have proposed.
Okay.
I'm looking at the list of the streets, and there are different streets for each of these next, really, 10 years. 700 East, Broadway, 600 North, Business Way, 100 East, Skyline, 1000 North, 920 South, 700 South. Those are all current streets that we have in the city. So all of these projects are, I mean, really, some of these are older areas. Sunset, Milburn, 60 South, has some old parts of town, so.
And that's really what most of them are going to be, because as new developments come in, they're required to provide their own stormwater, is my understanding, again. Filling in for Jamie, so don't quote me on that, but that's what I understand about them.
Where do we pay as citizens, where do we pay this fee? Is it on our water bill, or is it?
Yeah, it's part of the water
Okay.
bill.
All right. I mean, it's already jumped enough, I'll probably hear about it.
It's
yeah.
gone up a lot.
It has, yeah.
Yeah, and as you know, most of that was the sewer, which again is
Yeah.
very critical
Sure.
needs as
Yeah.
well, so.
Oh, yeah, I recognize why it's there, it's just, when my water bill was a lot more. Everybody recognizes that, so. Along with all utilities, or way
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll plan on bringing this back to a business meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next discussion item, which is a discussion on a land use map amendment for property located at approximately 300 East, 1000 North to reassign the land use designation from medium-density residential to high-density residential, presented by Andrew Agard, the Community Development Director.
Just waiting for my slide to pop up here. Click share not working.
Didn't get started.
Technology has let us down again. Can you see the slide on your monitors?
No,
No,
I mean, we have it in our packet. I'm assuming it's the same slide or a similar
Yeah,
slide.
it's the same slides. I'll go ahead and proceed. I know the council is fairly familiar with this, but this is involving a land use map amendment for approximately 9 acres located about 300 east, 1000 north. It's a large L-shaped property immediately east of the new fire station. You saw this at a work session about a month ago. The applicant is requesting to change the land use designation of the property from MDR, which is medium density residential, to HDR, which is high density residential. They desire to do that in order to facilitate the eventual zoning change that will permit the construction of higher density housing, such as townhomes or apartments or condominiums, depending upon the zoning density that would be awarded if the council's inclined to change the zone. At the last hearing for this, at the work session for this item, Councilman Hanson raised a question about whether or not there is a specific number or an industry standard for the amount of high-density housing a city should have. And at that time, I committed to doing some research for you to find out what information, because I had assumed that there is. I consulted various housing agencies, the Federal Housing of Urban Development, the Utah Department of Housing and Workforce Services, and even the American Planning Association based out of Washington.